You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast by Apathetic Enthusiasm.
In this episode, we hang out and talk, and I don't know. I hope you like it.
Oh, I think I grabbed the wrong intro music.
Yeah,
It's
it sounds
okay.
like it. Oh, hey everybody, I'm Travis.
Hey everybody, I'm a Brandon.
I'm a
You know what?
Brandon.
There's a
It's
intro
me, a
outro
Brandon.
music that the extended cut that I had created, and then that's the one I need to use. I'll pull that in later.
Yeah, we'll
Hey,
talk about your new toy here in a second.
welcome to Apathetic Enthusiasm. I am Brandon. Over there
I'm
is
still Travis.
my pal and cohort Travis, and this is a show in which we talk about just about everything. It started from humble beginnings, and it stayed there, and then we did other shows
Yep,
that were
we're still humble.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay humble. Yeah. Welcome if you're here for the first time. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. This is Apathetic Enthusiasm. We're just gonna chat tonight. We're gonna talk about a week and stuff, and Brandon apparently is gonna eat a spoon while we do so. If you're new to this show, you can follow us on all the social platforms. We're over on Twitter at Apathusiast. I'm at Jogomino. He's at Barnyard Cruise. Follow us on Facebook.com/Apathetic Enthusiasm Show. Send us an email with your thoughts at apatheticenthusiasmshow@gmail.com. Apathetic_enthusiasm. That's the Instagram. And you can find our website, apatheticenthusiasm.com, where we keep content for all of our stuff. Big shout out to the folks over at patreon.com/apatheticenthusiasm. Continue to support our endeavors. If you want to see the latest in Brandon's musical combinations, I don't know. He's recording all kinds of music and recording all the different parts and putting it up on video. You can find those over on our Patreon. They're pretty cool. I'd love to get my hands on that video and try to edit one of them for you.
We could talk about that. Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Last couple of things. We are streaming live right now at twitch.tv/apathetic enthusiasm. Appreciate everybody joining for the stream. Join the conversation. Be part of the show. Finally, if you missed the stream, you can catch video versions over at YouTube, youtube.com/apathetic enthusiasm. Yeah, it's been a week. Lot to talk about. Lots to discuss since we released our last podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk. What you want to start with that?
Let's start with semi-pertinent.
Semi-pertinent news.
We're changing the structure of the show.
Yeah. So if you're an interdimensional RSS listener, then you know that we recorded. In a very special episode of Interdimensional RSS, we recorded an episode where we talked all about the accusations against Justin Roiland. We talked about the criminal investigation for domestic violence charges. We talked about all of that stuff. It was spoken. We recorded it on a Monday night, where it was about 2 weeks after the news first broke, and yeah, we just had a conversation about where our podcast might be going, where the show Rick and Morty might be going, and then wouldn't you know it, Brandon edits that video and releases it not like 4 hours later. There's an official announcement from Adult Swim that Rick and Morty had cut their ties with Justin Roiland, officially moving away. He would no longer be part of the show, but that season 7 was still coming out and the show would continue. Brandon very quickly recorded a little blurb for that podcast to sort of make an update for it. But yeah, this is the first time really that we've talked about any of that. And if you don't care about Justin Roiland, if you don't care about any of this stuff, I don't think we'll get too into detail with it, but it has been interesting to see all of the dominoes fall in this situation. Adult Swim came out very quickly after that. Squanch Games, which is the game studio that Justin Roiland helped found and create, they parted ways with Roland as well. I think a day later, Hulu also came
Yeah.
out with a statement. I think.
Yeah, that's accurate. Go ahead. Yeah, for the solar opposites thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this is our first AE episode back from all of that. So all of
Yeah.
that stuff is going on over on the Rick and Morty side. Um, yeah, and we that whole episode we're talking about like, we were kind of doom saying. It felt doom saying. It felt like it could be like one of our very very last episodes of that show.
It did. It did.
Um,
And like I even said it. I think after we got done recording, how I kind of felt emotional about it because we've done so much with that show. We've built a pretty amazing audience that that supports us and appreciates the content that we've put out and gotten to interact with a lot of fans. And so yeah, it was really hard to kind of record that episode with the idea that it might be the last interdimensional RSS, depending on where Rick and Morty went in the future.
yeah, yeah. But so I mean, along with that, we because we didn't know what was going on with the Rick and Morty stuff, we had to start thinking about, okay, well, neither of us wants to stop podcasting. That's not what we want to do.
No.
So okay, well, then how do we stick with podcasting? Kind of stick with the listeners who've been listening to about Rick and Morty stuff,
Yeah.
uh, and seeing where we can kind of pivot, to use the buzzword for that. Like I
Pivot.
like pivot. Um, and so yeah, so Travis and I are like we pretty heavy into like developing a new show, which is pretty exciting, right? Like it's the excitement of
A
discovery,
fun new project and
building something new.
all of the creative juices flowing and building that out. Yeah,
What's great about it is it's that, like when we did AE, we half-assed
the
it.
show you're listening to now.
We started this show. We're like, yeah, let's podcast. Let's just do it. Humble beginnings, shitty microphones, shitty computers, shitty recordings. It hasn't changed, but
Not much has changed.
And then I started doing submit it for your approval. That got going, and then like I put a little bit more effort into developing it, but it was still like a very like, okay, I came up with it. Now I'm gonna get started and do it right away. Like there wasn't a whole lot of planning with that either. Rick and Morty, Interdimensional RSS, the same thing, right? Like we're like, we need a Rick and Morty podcast. Let's do it together. And if we had some planning, but it still felt like, let's get this out there before the new season comes out.
We spent more time. I think with each of those shows, we spent more time in a planning phase, but we were still very much our motto in those times was pen to paper, just make something, get it out there. And I think that's true for a lot of creative endeavors. You see those things shared. I mean, my algorithm shows me these things shared across social media all the time where it's like, your first podcast is going to suck. Your first, song that you write is going to suck. Your first book is going to suck, whatever. But just start writing, start making it, right? Because you can talk about it, you can dream about it for so long, but if you don't start making it, you're not going to get better. And I think this show is a testament to that, right? We just started making a podcast. We didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't know how to make it better until we really started making them. And then with submitted for your approval, you built more of a format to that. You had a structure to how you were introducing episodes. You had a theme, and then I think that bled over into how we developed interdimensional RSS, to where now we're looking at building a brand new show, a brand new podcast, 7-ish years into our history as
Yeah.
podcasters. And I think we're much more intentional about what we want the show to be, the audience that we want to reach, and it's taking longer for us to be like, okay, let's just record an episode. But I think the quality of those episodes, the focus of that show, and also I think for a selfish benefit, the the production schedule and flexibility on how we're going to develop that show, I think is going to help us in the long run to be able to turn out hopefully a quality product to the people that listen to it
Yeah.
in a reasonable schedule.
I keyed into intentional. That's a great keyword there. Intentional and deliberate. What how this feels different. Us developing the new show is different. Is I'm a little bit older. I mean, you know how I am. Like like I get ants in my pants, and I'm like,
Yeah.
let's just do it now, right? Like I just like planned impulse is what I've always kind of lived by. Like plan. Let's just do it right now, right?
Yep.
And this, maybe because I'm like in middle of a career change too, where I'm like, okay, I can use this as an opportunity to build some other skills and some planning skills and use them in a way to like to say, yeah, I've learned these other skills. Now let me actually put them into action. And like we're looking at the development in a much more structured way. Like we had a
Yeah.
Trello board, we had like we tried doing that, and we are like, okay, yeah, let's do set up our social media and stuff. But like now we have a whiteboard that like has the DNA of Travis, the DNA of Brandon, like in a weird hotel room with a black light. It's disgusting. Uh, but like there's like our brains are coming together and like in a much, I don't know, different. It feels different. It feels different this time around.
It does, and I think also, and I mean we're being really transparent here, for both of you that are listening. It's like we we have never been podcasters for the money. That's certainly never been the case. But as interdimensional RSS has developed, we are starting to see very early indications of how we could successfully build a show that has some monetary value as well. And if we are going to explore that with any other show, I want it to be a quality product that people enjoy and want to continue to listen to. And so if we pair that with advertising or any other things that we do in that space, then I don't want it to be something where it's just like a throwaway. Like, it's easy to be very flippant with a show when there's little risk or little,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. And again, this is not going to be like our livelihoods. We're not putting all our eggs into a podcasting basket. You may have more eggs in it than I do for a little while anyway. But yeah, it's something I think we just enjoy the creative process and collaborating, and so yeah, I'm excited for what this show becomes. And I would keep saying this show because we haven't even come up with a title for it yet.
That show.
The show.
There's another there's another part of like, I've said it on Interdimensional RSS a couple times openly. Like I didn't want to talk about Rick and Morty for forever and ever and ever. I wanted to eventually move on to different things, and part of that is a little like uh, it becomes riskier to try different things and alienating the audience that you have come to have join us on a journey. So like even like we moved hosts. We were on Blueberry and we moved over to Red Circle, and part of that was because they could do I mean, it was cheaper. We could have more shows, and also the dynamic ad insertion. So if you're listening to this podcast, if you're downloaded on your podcast app, you'll probably have heard some ads at the beginning, maybe here in the middle, maybe at the end, and that's like when that has not been there on interdimensional RSS or this one for forever. It was risky for me. Like it was in my head. I was like, man, I hope that doesn't alienate or like piss people off. If you're listening to podcasts, I'm sure you're used to it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it like, yeah, but that's not the norm. We had built in the different segments within intermezzo RSS, and we always had the idea like we can put kind of ad breaks into those in between those sections. But it's not what we're used to. I think with this new show, one of my intents is to like also um, you know format it with kind of advertisements or host read type pieces
Yeah.
built in already, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so if that's advertising for one of our other shows on the network, or one of our friends' podcasts, or whatever it is ends up being, or even because Red Circle has dynamically like placed ads, I can say, okay, at the 14-minute 10-second mark, we can put an advertisement here, and
Yeah.
then that matches up. So,
Hmm.
anyways, again, intentional, and deliberate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, so that's one of the things we've been focusing on. Um, we have been charging down that rabbit hole. Uh, and again, I don't want to say we were running away from the Rick and Morty content. But we were definitely straying from it. The news about Royland kind of being separated from the show, um, it did, like, and we talked about it on that podcast. It's hard to separate Justin Roiland from the show. It's not the same as just saying, oh, they're gonna recast the voices and like, so much of who, like, Justin Roiland has gone into the development of the show, and his name is never really gonna come off of Rick and Morty as a creator, right? Like, he's always gonna kind of have that title. Um, but by virtue of having a podcast that focuses on Rick and Morty, we have built relationships, we have built communication with people that work closely with the show, people that work on the show, and there were conversations that took place over the last week with people that are currently working on season 7 right now, right? And for me, it affected my perspective about the future of interdimensional RSS and supporting what has always been the intent of that podcast, which is supporting the creators, all creators, and all creative people that work on that show and put their blood, sweat, and tears into making Rick and Morty possible. So yeah, I think I had a little bit of a change of perspective. Is like, yeah, I don't have to we don't have to completely cut off interdimensional RSS and never make it again. Maybe we adjust how much time we spend on that show or how much we invest in it, but it's still, like, we can still celebrate the work of the
right.
people that are still a part of that show.
Yeah, yeah. Because those conversations, I'm right there with you. Like, it changed the perspective after having the conversation of somebody's working on the show currently, and saying, all this shit that's going on, it's in the end, it's our show because we put our hearts into it. It's
Mm-hmm.
your show as fans of it, and like we always tried to be the positive voices among many positive voices of the fan community. We weren't cringy. We weren't saying women suck, women writers suck. We weren't taking part in any of that. We were always trying to say, like, hey, there's some great people out there doing amazing things, fans doing amazing things, the artists, the writers, the directors, the musicians, elder, they're all
Yeah.
doing such great things, and let's celebrate them. And the people who are still working on the show, they're going to keep putting their hearts into it, and I think that we are going to continue celebrating them and being there as positive voices in the community.
Yeah.
So much so we can help it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that mean for Apathetic Enthusiasm as a
It's
podcast
over.
network?
It
It's
quits.
over. We're done. Folding it up. We'll probably add another show. We'll add an animation history podcast as soon as we can figure out all the details to it. So that is on its way. And we, based on Rick and Morty's production schedule, we'll probably have plenty of time to produce that show, because there's like year-long gaps between seasons. So
Yeah.
Um, so we're still gonna make interdimensional RSS, uh, as needed, as needed, right? Um,
I found out what this episode of Apathetic Enthusiasm is about. It's just about like what's like coming back from a break. What's going to happen? Like what are we kind of up to now
yeah,
with a network? Yeah, like so I'm in my world today was like it's one more month till I'm out of the military.
look
No
at
more.
you, look at
No
you.
more no more military. Retiring after 22 years. And what that
Holy
means is
man.
I have a lot of I have a lot of free time for creative endeavors. And one of those creative endeavors is the resurgence of submit for your approval. So you have your assignment, Travis. Matt has his assignment, and so he's going to record with me on Friday. Another Matt Hurt, who has his anthology podcast, is he he started way behind me on the Twilight Zone stuff, and because the last time I recorded was in December of 2020, he is now past me, and so I have to catch back up to him. But he's going to be on one of the shows. He's already talked to me about that. So like, I passed I passed a pandemic. I didn't record it all during a pandemic. I skipped the entire reboot of the Twilight Zone, and so I'm like, I guess it's time to come back to it.
Sure, sure.
I'm not burnt out anymore. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. I yeah, let's get back into it. I love that project for you, right? Like, but I'm loosely involved with it. I outside of a few images and a couple times that I'm on it, I'm just glad it exists. I'm just glad it exists as a podcast.
You know what's interesting about S4YA was like when we started this show, um, AE, and we had you know we had a fair amount of listeners. I think we get you know like maybe 100 downloads per episode now, right?
Ebbs and flows. Yeah.
Ebbs and flows. When the Twilight Zone podcast came out, submitted for approval, like that one, there weren't a lot of Twilight Zone podcasts out there. There's maybe like just just two or three main ones. Some of them are still around actually, but like that those episodes like jumped up to like 500 1,000 downloads per episode, and like that was like whoa like, and so there was growth there.
Yeah.
Then then Rick and Morty came out, and that like tripled right away. So I'm like, you know what, I'll focus creative efforts there.
Sure, sure,
um
sure, sure.
but that's when we cared more about numbers, and so it's good to come back to do that,
To this show
to
where
do
we
yeah,
don't care about numbers.
we don't care
We just
about
care about you. If this is entering your ear holes right now,
Bob Carroll.
this is for you. This is for you, Bob. He may
Bob
not
Carroll.
even listen.
He
He may
yeah
be too focused on the Eagles in the Super Bowl or
he
something.
downloads it all, like 6 times on 70 devices. That's where all our downloads come
That's
from.
the commitment. It's just Bob that we're talking to.
But
Yeah.
so then on creative endeavors, we talk about the Patreon stuff. So one of the things I want to do, um, and it's part of forming a habit, right? I think things like it's on random, doing kind of like my storytelling playlist podcast, mini podcast, whatever it was. Like that was cool. I enjoyed doing that, but I didn't make it a habit.
Yeah.
Um, I want to make posting things on Patreon more of a habit. So so I can feel better about the folks who've been supporting us for all this time.
Yeah.
And so one of those habit building pieces is um I what was it? A couple weeks back, I got I wanted to I've always been fascinated with, I'm a musician, play guitar, bass, drums, half-assed, but well enough to come together for music. I'm always I I love the idea of all these different instruments coming together and then forming a song, right? And I'm also fascinated about recording things and how those things come together to form a song, and like the mixing and the panning and the mastering and reverb and compression and all that audio stuff. And because I know how to do all of it at a little deeper than surface level, I like coming together and putting them together. So the part that I'm adding on to it now is I got a wild hair. I'm like, let's figure out a way where I can record myself on video doing that. And so then, putting together the different videos with the sound from the video, and then mixing them that way. And so, I that's what I've been posting on Patreon. I posted one song. I think I don't know if I posted the other one. I didn't post the other one yet. That'll be this Friday, and then there'll be another one next week. And so the thought I have is kind of keep doing that, but maybe like break it down a little bit further, and maybe just do like a clip of the guitar for one week, a clip of the drums the next week, and then take a little bloggy type thing, and then bring them together at the end of the month.
No.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing with that. I like, and it'll keep me going with writing music, and maybe get me back into actually writing songs. I'm probably overdue to write a new song, but
Yeah. You are. You should. You should write one about our friend anniversary on Facebook.
that is today, January 31st.
Yeah, I mean, talking about our Patreon, super appreciative of the people that are on there that continue to support us. Even when we release an episode saying we may be taking a hiatus from a show, we had a boost in one of our donations. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh, that's the opposite of what I was expecting to have happen. So yeah, we do want to appreciate those folks and come up with some new ways to show that appreciation. I think we've got a couple ideas kicking around for the animation show as well, that I think could be fun. Yeah.
I thought about this today because I was putting some stuff on the whiteboard. Just in my personal whiteboard is also like we could also do like a mini developer blog for how we're developing that show,
Yeah.
and kind of give them the behind the scenes of like,
Ooh.
oh, that's what they're talking about, what they're actually.
I like that. Yeah, we should start sharing some of that on the Patreon. So there you go. If you're not a patron and you want to know all the deets on the new project, we'll start posting it on Patreon. Cool. All right. Anything else network wise we want to talk about? I mean, there's some shows that are out right now that we could discuss a little bit. We could talk about that whole DC thing that you didn't watch. That's probably not a good call, seeing as you didn't actually watch it.
Swamp Thing is coming to the DCU.
It's gonna be a horror. It's supposed to be a horror film.
Oh yeah, that's fucking Swamp Thing, man.
So here's what I'll say about the DC stuff. James Gunn, I trust his intent with building a cinematic universe, right? I think he spent enough time doing Guardians, being a part of the MCU, to have a good grip on like some things that are important. He talks about in the video that storytelling is on the forefront of this, right? So all of the DC content that is going to be coming out is going to be part of this DCU, unless it is given a special tag. I think it's like called Other Worlds or Outer Worlds or something like that. So if it's Teen Titans Go or some different video games and different stuff, like that stuff does not necessarily play into this DCU. But everything else, HBO Max series, some animated series that they have intentions on having the actors that play live action versions of the characters also voice acting some animated characters, which I think is really interesting and a cool way to cross that over. But yeah, his declaration, if you will, that storytelling is at the forefront of these. He wants each show or movie to still embrace a director's vision and give them, I don't know, sort of the autonomy to make the film that they want to make, but interconnect those stories. And coming at it with a plan, they're doing a full reset with starting Shazam kind of links into it, the new Shazam movie, and then the Flash movie is what he called the reset of the DCU. I just I'm excited about it. I have not been super hyped on DC for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but I gotta say, James Gunn being the Kevin Feige of the DCU, like I don't know, I am optimistic about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that the two best things that came out of DC in the recent years are Peacemaker and uh Suicide Squad, right? Like those are two best things.
Gun and gun.
I I did like Shazam. I saw Black Adam at the VA. It was there was like there was like
I did not watch Black
a pirated version of it playing in the VA office. But anyway, so like I watched a little bit. I was like, oh, this isn't very good. Although Doctor Fate was in there, and that's awesome. But like he's knowledgeable of characters. Like the fact that they're gonna have a Booster Gold
A
is
Booster Gold HBO Max series.
yeah. The fact that they're gonna have that is cool. I didn't see was Blue Beetle on there. Are they still coming out with a Blue
So
Beetle?
yeah, I think so. He spoke to them without like he basically said you've got Shazam coming out, Flash, and then they go to Blue Beetle, and then he started talking about some future
Okay.
projects that are sort of in production or in planning stages but aren't actually being developed.
Okay. 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 Yeah, because the stories that I knew of Booster Gold, like him and Blue Beetle, or the old Blue Beetle, not the newer guy. But yeah, so that's cool. And Swamp Thing, like I haven't had a good uh
Yeah,
since Frank.
we're gonna get a reset on Superman, a reset on Batman again.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am very interested in. There is a Lanterns series coming out, and there he says it's going to be terrestrial, so mostly like on Earth, but he almost like referred to it as like a True Detective kind of show, but with these lanterns or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's I don't know. Maybe they could do Green Lantern justice in cinematic form. We'll see.
Maybe.
I don't
Maybe.
know. Like,
I
yeah,
did watch season 3 of True Detective, by the way. That reminds me. I did. I watched the. I binged it. I'm
there you
retiring.
go.
I've got time.
There's time now.
It was pretty. It was a pretty good season. Anyways,
5 long
um,
years saying hesitantly optimistic. Yeah, there's still some hesitance, right?
yeah,
It's still DC. They
and
still have
you're
the
still gonna have all the
capacity to completely screw this up.
you're still gonna have all them Snyder Bros coming at you.
I'm not
That's
worried
that's
about
that's
them.
the craziest thing to me, right? It was like people like, ah, Gunner's killing the DC. Bring back Snyder. Like, ah, uh, his movies are alright, but I don't understand why anybody would be so adamant for a creator who is talented in his own right, but not like super talented. What's interesting is like I go back to the Dawn of the Dead remake, which was written by Gunn and directed by Snyder, and like I love the Dawn of the Dead remake, like one of my favorite remakes of all time. Um, and and I'm like, is it the writing or is it or was it the directing? I don't, it's tough. It's tough to say. But then again, Gunn also did Scooby Doo, which I do like. I do like Scooby Doo.
They're not all winners.
I do like it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. It caught me completely off guard. I just happened upon the video today and was like, oh, I didn't realize any of this was happening. Just because the direction the DCU was going in for so long, I was just like, no, I was turned off. I was not interested. And mind you, I think I'm more familiar with some Marvel characters than DC in general. But um,
This is why I prefer Gunn to Snyder in this arena, right?
bullet
If
time.
we're talking about visuals, then then I have to give it to Snyder. I think from a visual perspective, I think he has interesting things he wants to say visually. Like Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is a shitty movie. I hate it, but it's got some interesting visuals. It has some very interesting visuals. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, as much as I love Guardians of the Galaxy, visually speaking, I don't. I'm not like, whoa, yeah, oh, I love watching this. But story wise, way better. And so when we're talking about the creation of a DC universe, and you need to have all of these interconnected pieces, and you need to tell a story, an overarching story, then you want to have a storyteller at the head of it.
Yeah.
You don't want to have the visual guy running it, and so I think that's why, as talented as he is visually, Snyder wasn't the right guy for it.
Yeah.
Killing off Superman in the second movie, like too soon,
Too
too soon,
soon.
literally too soon.
Yep. Yep. So I don't know. That's all I'll say about all that. I think it'll be interesting. I'm
No,
excited.
let's talk more about it.
Well, I'm
Let's
excited.
talk more about it.
DC reboot by Jerry Bruckheimer. Thanks. Let's transition to the other cinematic universe.
Okay. The Last of Us.
The Last of Us cinematic universe. The Naughty Dog cinematic universe, as it were. That's the game studio, right? Did I get it right?
Naughty Dog is a game studio.
Did they make The Last of Us?
I
Only
think
the
so.
internet was nearby.
I think they. Which universe were you talking about?
I was gonna get a hype check for Quantumania.
Oh, um, man, I want to be more excited about that movie, but I'm not. I'm not that excited about it.
Naughty Dog made The Last of Us in 2013.
I there, I don't know if it's just like it's so much in the quantum realm that I'm like worried that it's gonna look cheesy for 2 hours.
Okay.
So little bit concerning in that way. I'm interested to see how much of a badass Kang is, and like what he's wanting from Scott,
Yep.
um, and how that ties into eventually the Kang Dynasty, and all the other stuff that's happening in MCU. But as far as being excited about it, yeah, I don't know. I need more ants, man.
Where's Antony? Yeah,
Uh,
I feel the same way. Like Ant-Man and Paul Rudd, some of my favorite stuff in the MCU, right? I Sheena had not watched either Ant-Man films. Probably because I went and saw the first one with you, and I may have seen the second one with you. I don't know, or who I went and saw it with, but yeah. So we watched both Ant-Man films, and I made her watch the fight scene from Civil War, and then the opening bit from Endgame when he comes out of the quantum realm. To discover, post snap, everything that had happened. I made my own sizzle reel of Paul Rudd, is what I did. I think a 3-hour sizzle reel.
why are there clips from Halloween 6 and Clueless in this?
Is that Mac and me? Why are we watching him eat cauliflower on Hot Ones right now?
I hope that in Quantumania it starts like this. It's like the MCU, and then the snap, and then it goes straight into Mac and Me.
No, what I want is the Marvel Studios opening where the letters like shift down and you see on the sides of the letters all the clips of
Uh-huh.
all the heroes, but I want it all just clips of tight shots of all of the ants from the previous movies. So
Oh
just like the carpenter ants and the bullet ants and stuff, and Anthony flying around, and that's all you get. Yeah,
gosh. They
yeah.
don't get enough credit, those ants.
They don't. They don't. They're pivotal to the story.
They
I don't know. We get some Loveness, right? We're gonna see what
yeah.
he can do with it. It's very interesting to me that they are movie wise kicking off the big bad long story arc of this whole Kang dynasty that is going to be central to two Avengers movies further down the line, and like it's happening in an Ant-Man movie. Like that's the big hero that's sort of ushering in. I mean, obviously first introduced in the Loki series, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Well,
I find that
he's not
interesting.
Kang in the Loki series. Um, he's that person, but a variant. But that's not Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, sure.
It's a small thing, but you gotta note it because there's many different versions of the character of Kang
I
out
do
there.
want to rewatch Loki, I think, before I go see the movie.
Um, there was a thought I had on the Kang. Oh, the introduction of him so early. I think it's an interesting shift in narrative direction. Whereas like with the Avengers and the Infinity Stone, the Infinity Saga, it was like he was behind the scenes. Thanos is like kind of in the shadows, and we don't see him doing a lot of stuff until you know towards the end of the until the end, right? And this one, we're like, this is who we're going to be focusing on in this next phase, and so this is the person that you need to keep your eye on. And like, what else is he going to be in? I think Loki season 2, maybe he'll be in that. Like
I mean, who knows? He. It's interesting because we first see Thanos in the MCU in the post credits scene of the first Avengers movie.
mm,
Like that's where they're like, Thanos is here. Thanos is going to be a thing, right? And if you think about the first phase of the MCU leading up to the first Avengers movie, it was more about who those Avengers were and introducing Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk,
hmm
and then how they come together to fight together. And then you get all these movies that are again about those characters and things, but the thing they're fighting over ends up being these Infinity Stones, and I think viewers are introduced to the Infinity Stones not necessarily even knowing what they are or why they're important unless they're already a comic fan that knows why that blue rock and that red floaty stuff are important and how they work together, right? So, in the same way, I would kind of credit the creative team behind all of this madness at introducing the concept of the multiverse over the last phase is sort of like that's sort of been our introduction to this arc's Infinity Stones, right? Like instead of seeing all these different rocks and them all being kind of collected together, you have everything that happened in the Loki series. You have the Spider-Man Multiverse of Madness, right? You've got even just how they worked with time in Endgame.
yeah.
Yeah, I think those have sort of been our introductions into this, and then
Well,
we'll
and
have some sort of yeah,
that was the critique. That was the critique of this last phase. Was like, what's going on? Is anything gonna happen? And that was my retort is yeah, shit is happening. Like they're just like phase one where they're introducing concepts and they're introducing characters. Like they're doing some setup for the next phase. They
yeah,
have they have to do some narrative setup so that people come in and they understand generally what's going on. If you introduce like the idea of a multiverse out of nowhere, then people are like, well, that doesn't jibe with what we saw in Endgame, right?
yeah, yeah. That's fair.
So there has to be that connective connective tissue. Um, yeah, having said that,
But I mean, Thanos was prominently featured in MCU films leading up to Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, he's
prominently featured.
uh,
Was he a main?
yeah, in Guardians, he's in it a ton, right? And as we get introduced to Gamora and see that relationship and how that works, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's in there quite a bit. I feel.
I mean, I don't feel like he's in there quite a bit in the Guardians movies. Like
Agree to
being like
disagree. Agree to
being like the emperor in the background and like just appearing in a hologram and telling what's his face with a hammer like don't fail me again, and then going back into another and then disappearing, like ending the message like that. That's not like prominently featuring him. And like the stuff, the behind the scenes
Maybe I
with
misremember that film, but I feel like he was much more involved than
um yeah,
I don't
I
know.
don't know. And like this, like the history with Gamora, like that was in
That was
that was
Infinity War.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like that's not a Guardians specific thing either. And like Guardians 2, none of that, because it's all about ego. Um,
Yeah.
so I know they talk about him a lot because of Gamora and her sister, but like he's not in it that much
Yeah.
from my
Yeah. I
recollection.
think you're probably right. And 5 long years agrees with you. So 2-1. 2-1.
Yeah.
Either
All right.
way, we're getting a movie. We're getting an Ant-Man movie in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna watch it. Um, yeah, and
I'm
then
gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it too.
and then we'll see how it goes. Let's wrap up our time here
Okay.
talking about and we'll probably revisit this topic so we don't have to go too deep of a dive into it. But yeah, obviously, The Last of Us becoming a very popular show very quickly, based on the 2013 video game by Naughty Dog Studios, um, that I just Googled. But yeah, this is a new series on HBO. Uh, Only 3 episodes out so far, but I think over 5 hours of content so far. Yeah, like a 2 hour premiere. I think episode 3 was like an hour and a half long. How you feeling about the show so far?
I'm watching it. I'm liking it. Um, I I I like the premiere. The second episode I didn't care as much for.
Okay,
And the third episode, well, it was beautiful, Travis. It was a beautiful it was a beautiful
it's
episode.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it yeah, yeah. The third episode was very very good. Um, and yeah, I'm interested to see where they take it. I know that they're like the internet is like kind of back and forth on the third episode. I think for the most part, everyone's like, "Wow, like that was solid." Bill and Frank, those characters, focusing on them in that way was a great choice, and it's a departure from the game.
Right.
But a lot of people are like Bill's interactions with Ellie in the game. We don't get that, but we're okay because this was a really good episode. I saw some like cringe I'll say cringe take, whereas like they were calling it, like exploitative and just like on the nose with like a gay relationship, and like if this is the kind of representation we we get, then we don't need it was like a very bad take.
Mm,
And I think it was just like for clicks, but
mm.
they got him.
Yeah,
uh,
I thought it was interesting hearing. I was watching the sort of after the episode, inside the episode type stuff,
mm,
and I think one of the producers was talking about how if an idea is as good or worse than what's already in the game, they just go with what's in the game. But if they come up with an idea that's better
mm.
than what's in the game, they pursue that idea. And I think that was sort of the rationale behind episode 3, is building out that relationship and exploring uh, what survival looks like in that
Mm.
context over, a couple of decades, really. Um, yeah, I think that is really interesting, and I think it speaks to the thing that I like about The Last of Us, that's different from like a Walking Dead or other zombie type content, is outside of maybe the second episode where they're, walking through busted down Boston and trying to navigate through it. There's an intense scene where they fight the clickers, I think is what they call them, and they're hiding from zombies and stuff like that. And that to me feels more like a zombie show, but the rest of the show has really been about the relationships, the people, society, and commentary on what does that look like? How do people operate? What does trust look like? What does survival look like? In a world that has gone through something like this, and so that to me, I think is the more appealing part of the show,
Yeah.
is seeing the different aspects of that.
It feels far more character study. It, Walking Dead tried to be a character study, and I don't think it was as effective as the first 3 episodes of The Last of Us have been, as
Yeah,
far as character studies go. The other thing, so I agree with you. The other thing that I would say is for me, what I appreciate about it, and what's kind of refreshing is, ultimately, like, the game is about Joel kind of coming to a point where he, like, loss and growing as a person, and like getting over loss, and like, and growing in this post-apocalyptic world. The thing that got to me with The Walking Dead eventually is this pervasive cynicism that nothing is ever going to improve, and that no matter what, there's another threat just right around the corner that's going to take your city, your haven, your safe haven, and it's going to, whether it's another human or whether it's the zombies, whatever it is, it's going to demolish it and destroy it. And in even if there's the government who are kind of Nazis, even if they're there, there are still these smaller moments of people looking at each other, a sense of relationships that these people have, this history that people have. And in the third episode, it's it's two two men coming together, finding each other in this apocalypse. One who's a survivor, who is a survival prepper, who all he's ever wanted to do was survive, and then where that leads him towards the end of the episode. And that, like, it's not cynical. It's like he
yeah,
found he found purpose in all of this,
yeah.
and so that's like a key difference between those two concepts.
Yeah, if we've talked about this for 10 minutes and you have no idea what we're talking about,
Sorry.
you owe it to yourself to hop on HBO Max, or I don't know, visit a friend who's got an account, and check out The Last of Us. The first 3 of 9 episodes are already out. It comes out Sunday nights. Pedro Pascal plays Joel, the lead from Mandalorian, and all the way back to Game of Thrones, where we also get Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, also a Game of Thrones alum. So, and
Oh,
Brandon is just now making that connection.
we're just now making
Um,
a connection. By the way, he is wonderful in the overwhelming weight of something talent. The Nicolas Cage movie.
oh yeah, I haven't seen it. I,
Yeah.
I Oscar nominations came out in the last week or so as well, which
Oh,
means I owe it to myself to catch up on some of the Best Picture nominees. that I have not watched. Now I'm probably gonna have to like rent a bunch of them on streaming because they're gonna try and get their money out of me. But a lot of films nominated. So I'll have to check some of those out.
All right. Sounds good. For those who are listening to this show, if you heard anything that we were talking about, if you're interested about what's going on with Apathetic Enthusiasm Network or our development or Rick and Morty or submit for your approval, send us an email, apatheticenthusiasmshow@gmail.com, at Apathusiast on Twitter. He's at Jugglemino. I'm at Barnyard Cruise on Twitter. You can hit us up that way. Let us know. Alternately, if you have thoughts about the DCU or the MCU, Quantum Mania coming up, let us know. And then, of course, what we just talked about with The Last of Us. Are you the last of yous? I don't know.
I
Let
don't
us
know.
know. Tell us.
I don't
Tell
know.
us. That's your CTA, as they say in the biz.
As
Your,
they say. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for hanging out with us for about an hour. And until next time, I'm Travis.
and I am Brandon. And let me figure out where this music is on this Rodecaster Pro 2. Goes by pretty quick.